You are listening to the first segment of our two-part series, The Benefits of Butter, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Jim and I hope that you're enjoying the gathering dark as we start to really feel the winter coming in, huh?
Yeah, I am. Yes, indeed.
Time to really, just pull things close into home. I must say that I really like this season a lot because people tend to get more sparkly as the days get darker, and I like that.
Yeah, I do enjoy this time of the year as well.
So, wow, the holidays, and we often think of holidays, we often think about a lot of fat. And, especially over recent times, there's been a bit of a phobia about fat in the diet, with some people even recommending extremely low-fat diets and suggesting that fat makes you fat. Now, of course, those two words are exactly alike, fat, and so it would make sense that fat would make you fat, but it turns out fat doesn't make you fat, all right? The results of research on women undermine more than a decade's worth of advice. Low-fat diets do not protect women against heart attack, stroke, breast cancer, or colon cancer, a major study has found. This was an 8-year study of over 50,000 middle-aged and elderly women, by far the largest, most definitive test of cutting fat from the diet, and it did not find any evidence that it reduced disease risks, and this is quite startling. It runs contrary to the belief that eating less fat would have all kinds of good health benefits. No, in fact, Sally Fallon at the Weston A. Price Foundation, find them at westonaprice.org, has been one of the strong voices speaking up for fat in the diet. And Weston Price himself was quite interested in the role of fat in the diet. I don't know if we talked about Weston Price, but just a short review here. Weston Price was a dentist and was primarily active in the early part of the 20th century. And he believed that the health of your teeth reflected the health or not of your diet. And people really kind of laughed at him. They really just didn't think that there was any connection at all between what people ate and how healthy their teeth were. Beyond that, Weston Price had an idea which still kind of sounds like an outrageous idea, and that is that people's teeth are supposed to be normally healthy and free of cavities and disease. Now, I have often said, and I do believe that modern dentistry is one of the greatest gifts that we have, but Weston Price took that one step further, and he said modern dentistry is wonderful, but we shouldn't have to have it at all. And to see if he was right about this, he undertook traveling around this planet from north to south, east to west, covering more than 3 million miles, in every conveyance except airplanes, because there weren't airplanes at the time that Weston A. Price and his wife were traveling around the world. Their goal was to visit as many indigenous populations as possible and to look and see what they were eating and what their teeth looked like. Weston A. Price's book, Nutrition and Human Degeneration, is still in print nearly 100 years later, and it is filled with photographs of teeth. You go to the westonaprice.org website, you are also going to see all of these photographs of teeth, because let's remember, Dr. Price was a dentist. He was interested in teeth. And you, like I, may not want to look at the great number of pictures of teeth that he took, and yet we feel compelled to. We feel compelled to because we look at these pictures and we see the most beautiful teeth we've ever seen in our life. We see beautiful, straight teeth free of cavities. We see beautiful, jaws with no problem, with the wisdom teeth. We see teeth, as Weston Price put it, in their state of grace, in the way that teeth are supposed to be. And so as he went to all of these places, as he studied with these indigenous people, as he looked at what they were eating, he saw some very interesting things. And one was that there was no culture that in any way attempted to limit the amount of fat in their diet. As a matter of fact, because fat is actually fairly scarce in the natural world, most cultures try to optimize the amount of fat that they had in their diet. And I think about how true this was among the Native American people, and especially the Native American people of the Great Plains. When white people pushed west beyond Ohio and out into the Great Plains, they found plenty of game there. There were lots of rabbits, there were birds, there were even larger animals that they could eat, and yet many of them starved to death because although they were getting adequate amounts of protein and other nutrients, they were not getting adequate amounts of fat. And without the fat in their diet, their nutrient uptake became very low. As a matter of fact, we know that fat is critical for uptake of minerals, and we're beginning to learn that fat is also critical for uptake of vitamins as well. So Weston especially focused in on butter. Butter seemed to him to be an especially important fat. And he believed that there was a special substance in butter that he called a vitamin-like activator. He called it Activator X. And Dr. Price said that Activator X is critical in the body for utilization of minerals, protection against tooth decay, for normal growth and development of bones, for reproductive success, for protection against heart disease, and for good functioning of the brain. Now, you and I might think, Activator X, what was the man going on about? Well, we can now say that what he was going on about is vitamin K2. And many of us kind of in the background know that vitamins are groups of substances. If I were to ask you, Gemini, how many B vitamins there are, you might guess or estimate or tell me there are how many B vitamins?
Oh, gosh. I'm guessing 6 to 7, but I'm not sure.
Well, there you go. At least you know that there's more than one, right?
Oh, yes.
Right? And then,
yes.
And then many people with a little more time to think than I gave you say vitamin, well, there must be 12 because I know there's a vitamin B12.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then a few say, well, there must be at least 17 because Laetrile is vitamin B17. In fact, every vitamin known is a group of substances that work together. So when we say vitamin A or vitamin B or vitamin C or vitamin D or vitamin K, well, we don't really mean that. We mean the group of B vitamins or the group of A vitamins or the group of D vitamins. And many people know that because they decided, well, maybe they should supplement with D, and then they go out and suddenly they're faced with, oh, should they get D2 or should they get D3? Aha, so we know there are at least 3 forms of vitamin D that are active in the human body. And just so, vitamin K is not the lonely vitamin that has only one factor. It has at least 2 factors, and we do suspect that we will find more. And vitamin K2 is kind of the unsung one, the one that people haven't paid very much attention to, but the one that just fascinated Weston Price. He could not get enough of working with Activator X, vitamin K2, again, because he considered it the substance that protected the teeth against decay. He actually went so far as to study the remains of human skeletons from past eras and estimated that there had been more dental decay in the 100 years during which he was living than in the previous 1,000-year period. This is one of the things that got him into wanting to go and look at Aboriginal people and see, is this really so? Is it really possible that people are meant to have good teeth? He used, to help people who had dental problems, cod liver oil and butter as the cornerstone of his protocol for reversing dental problems. He says that it not only stopped the progression of tooth decay in every instance, but it completely reversed it without the need for any kind of oral surgery. He saw that factor X in the butter actually caused the dentin to grow and the teeth to remineralize. And the amount that Weston Price used of his butter oil was a teaspoonful 3 to 5 times a day, again, usually mixed with cod liver oil. Vitamin K2 is found in its second highest concentration in the body in the salivary glands. And Weston said, voila! Well, obviously, Activator X, vitamin K2, is affecting the composition of the saliva. And it is the saliva that is going to reduce the bacteria count in the mouth. And we all know that. We can go in with dentifrices and mouthwashes and all kinds of things that do a kind of local job. But those things are only in our mouths for short amounts of time, whereas saliva is in our mouth for a very, very long time. And one of the things that concerns especially people as they age is not just the decay of the teeth themselves, but also the erosion of the underlying bony structure of the jaws. And right now, the way we describe this process is that there are bacteria that attack the teeth and cause tooth decay, but there are also bacteria that attack the underlying bone, and that is called gum disease, and they're actually different bacteria. And those bacteria eat away at the bone, causing the teeth to loosen, to shift around, and sometimes even to fall out. Weston Price believed that Activator X was critical for bone health. Nowadays, we know that there are 2 vitamin K-dependent proteins that are critical for skeletal metabolism, one of them being osteocalcin. When there's not enough vitamin K in the body, then these particular proteins, the matrix Gia protein and the osteocalcin, are made, but they are secreted in an inactive form. The vitamin K activates it. So even though we continue to make these proteins, we can't actually use them without the vitamin K. In fact, when we look at people and we look at how much osteocalcin there is in the blood and whether that osteocalcin is inactive or active, the people with the highest percentage of inactive osteocalcin are at a 5-fold increased risk of hip fractures. Researchers from the University of Maastricht in Netherlands found vitamin K2 is 3 times more effective than vitamin K1 at raising the percentage of activated osteocalcin. In fact, when they gave patients vitamin K1, it seemed to raise the activation of the osteocalcin, but only for about 3 days, and then it didn't seem to have much effect, whereas the effect of vitamin K2 increased throughout the entire 40 days of the study. So, if you're thinking about taking any kind of vitamin K supplement, then vitamin K1 is not going to be anywhere near as good as vitamin K2, but again, we don't really want to take supplements. Japanese studies find that vitamin K2 can completely reverse bone loss and increase bone mass, even among those with severe osteoporosis. A pooled result from 7 large Japanese trials found that vitamin K2 supplementation produced a 60% reduction in vertebral fractures and an 80% reduction in hip and non-vertebral fractures. One study used extremely high amounts of vitamin K2 and did not observe any adverse effects, and this particular study went on for several years. So again, I'm not suggesting that we go out and get vitamin K2. I'm saying that Weston Price found that butter was one of the best sources of vitamin K2, so that's why we're talking about it, because it's easy to get from butter. Vitamin K2 also protects us from heart disease. As a matter of fact, there is a branch of research that is looking at vitamin K2 deficiency as one of the primary triggers of heart attacks. Lack of vitamin K2 causes calcification in the cardiovascular system. It causes the blood vessels to become inflexible. It raises blood pressure. It causes cholesterol plaque to be deposited. And vitamin K2 not only keeps the blood vessels flexible, it protects against inflammation. It protects against the accumulation of lipids in the bloodstream, and it protects against the kinds of white blood cells that link with those lipids to make atherosclerotic plaque. The relationship between heart disease, lack of, and vitamin K2 is absolutely straightforward. The Rotterdam study followed 4,600 men aged 55 or older, and those who had the highest intake of vitamin K2 had a 52% lower risk of heart disease and a 51% lower risk of cardiac mortality and a 26% lower overall risk of mortality. Wow. People, when I talk about this, people look at me and they go, this cannot be, you cannot be saying this. This is making my head spin around because, of course, we have been told over and over and over again that protect the heart against heart disease, you do what?
To give up fat.
You give up fat. You give up butter. You don't eat butter. And yet here is good, strong evidence showing that one of the primary things that we get in butter, in not many other places, is vitamin K2, and vitamin K2 has one of the most powerfully straightforward relationships with preventing heart attacks known. Now, why are we damning butter? Well, the primary reason that we damn butter is because butter contains cholesterol. And the idea has been for a long time in modern medicine that cholesterol in and of itself is bad and leads to heart attacks. And therefore, if we want to protect the heart, then we eat fewer things that contain cholesterol. So we don't want to eat butter because it contains cholesterol. So we kind of have the vitamin K2 on one side going, but I protect the heart, and the cholesterol on the other side, and we're being told that the cholesterol causes bad things to happen. Now, I'm not the only person to say this, and you can actually find books written about this, but the fact of the matter is that this belief that cholesterol is connected to plaques in the bloodstream and on the blood vessels and to heart attacks is a hypothesis that has never been proven. Granted, there are millions upon millions of people in the United States right now taking cholesterol-lowering drugs in the hopes that it will prevent a heart attack. They're literally lowering cholesterol in the hope that it will prevent a heart attack. But this theory has never been shown to be true. In fact, if we go back to the original study results from the Framingham Heart Health study done in Massachusetts, what we find is that the men who actually lived the longest were the ones who had the most cholesterol in their diet, and especially cholesterol from, you guessed it, the star of our show this week, and probably next week as well, because we certainly have not even begun to cover all the wonderful, wonderful things that we can learn about butter. Right? We were talking about matrix proteins before, and how matrix proteins in the bones are made whether there's vitamin K or not, but they have to be activated, and they're activated by vitamin K2. It actually turns out that these same proteins are critically important in the heart and the blood vessels, and that when inactive forms of these proteins circulate, in other words, when there's insufficient vitamin K2, they calcify structures containing lipids. In other words, the blood vessels where the lipids are flowing through are going to receive these inactive proteins, and these inactive proteins have the effect of causing crystallization and calcification. And this is exactly what we know leads to that heart attack or that stroke, is the stiffening and the calcification of the blood vessels. All right? What are many people given if they are given drugs supposedly to help their hearts or to help them, to be healthier a longer time? Well, one of the things that they're going to probably be given is a vitamin K antagonist, a drug that inhibits the conversion of vitamin K1 to vitamin K2. So there are new classes of blood-thinning drugs that don't thin the blood by interacting with vitamin K, but the vast majority of people who are now taking any blood-thinning drug are taking a drug that interferes with the utilization of vitamin K. What happens when we can't utilize vitamin K? The arteries are decreased in their ability to accommodate a surge of blood pressure. Let's think about it. When you say, oh, this person has high blood pressure or low blood pressure, and yet we know that blood pressure is not the same minute to minute, hour to hour, and that there are certain things that can scare us, that can upset us, that can raise our blood pressure. As a matter of fact, somebody was saying that one of the ways that he remains faithful, he's a doctor, is that he knows that the most likely event to trigger a heart attack in a man over a certain age is sex with a woman not his wife. And again, they think that this is because it causes a blood pressure surge, a high blood pressure surge, and those blood vessels cannot flex enough to accommodate it, and voila, we have a heart attack. And yes, indeed, warfarin, right, and other blood thinners, that's exactly what they are doing. Dear, dear, dear. In the Nurses' Health Study, the risk of heart disease was 16% lower for those who consumed foods very rich in vitamin K, and this includes kale as well as butter. Now, I mentioned that the salivary glands and the pancreas are the places in the body where we are going to find K2, and they far prefer K2 over K1. And you can find high amounts of K2 in the salivary glands and the pancreas even when the diet is deficient in vitamin K, which suggests that vitamin K2 is critically important in activating digestive enzymes and in the regulation of blood sugar and the cell's ability to be sensitive to insulin. So not only are we saying that butter is a good thing for your heart, but we're also saying that butter is going to help to prevent adult onset of diabetes as well. The brain contains one of the highest concentrations of vitamin K2 in the body. As a matter of fact, of the vitamin K in the brain, almost all of it is vitamin K2. And the human brain, about 93% of the vitamin K in the brain is in the form of vitamin K2. It supports enzymes that are in the brain and made within the brain, and these are enzymes that produce an important class of lipids called sulfatides. The levels of vitamin K2, vitamin K-dependent proteins, and sulfatides decline with age. In human autopsies, Alzheimer's was associated with a 93% lower sulfatide level in the brain. Animals that lack sulfatides get seizures, lose their locomotive activity, have growth retardation, and we suspect have learning difficulties as well. So eating our butter not only improves the health of the heart, it actually aids our brain and helps keep us sharp as we age. To get back to those people out on the plains and the lack of fat in the animals out there, when the white people came into contact with the native people, one of the names that the native people called them by, which was not really a very polite name, was Washashu. And Washashu literally translates as eats all the fat. Oh my goodness, it was of course well known among the peoples who lived in those areas that the women and the children needed the fat. And so the fat was always first given to the women and the children. And here come these white men who don't follow that rule because they don't live in fat scarcity, and so they eat all the fat. When I was growing up, when I was a teenager, fat in your hair was actually considered sexy. I know, it's hard to believe. You think, ooh, greasy hair, yuck, what? But you think about kooky, lend me your comb, and Bryltrine, a little dabble, do you? What's going on here? And what's an antimacassar anyhow? What's a doily, right? An antimacassar is a doily. Well, why do we need an antimacassar doily on everything? Because against macassar was kind of oil the Victorian men put in their hairs, and you better have an antimacassar on your chair or anything that their macassar would come in contact with because it was oily and greasy and would get all over everything. So, from time out of mind, men all over the planet have signified their worthiness to be a woman's mate by rubbing fat in their hair. Let's decode this. What is the man saying? The man is saying, look at me. I am a good hunter. I will get animals with fat. You will be a healthy woman. You will have healthy milk. You will have healthy babies. See how much fat I can get? I rub it in my hair. Ah, ha, ha. So certainly nowadays we don't think in those terms. Right? And I'm not even saying that Kooky, when he was rubbing stuff in his hair, was thinking about, oh, she's going to really like me because she's going to think I'm a great hunter. But down deep underneath, these are kind of old human messages that we have. Butter is, like chocolate, a sacred food. And we're going to need to come back next week and talk about the sacred aspects of butter and perhaps a little more about the cholesterol hypothesis as well. And please come and visit me at SusanWeed.com. You'll find over 5,000 pages of free health information there, lots of information on herbs, of course, since I do love the green blessings. And you can find all 5 of my books: Wise Woman Herbal for the Childbearing Year, Healing Wise, which is the big green herbal for everybody, Breast Cancer, ? Breast Health, ! The Wise Woman Way, New Menopausal Years, The Wise Woman Way, and my newest book down there, The Wise Woman Way, all at wisewomanbookshop.com, or that other bookseller named after a big, strong woman. They have my books too, and you can find them there. Something new for you to consider is my new website called wisewomanmentor.com. There you'll find my regular e-zine as well as a host of wonderful subsidiary materials should you elect to be a mentored student. Thanks for having me, Gemini. It's been wonderful once again.
It's our pleasure, Susan. Thank you so much. This completes the first segment of our 2-part series, The Benefits of Butter, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.